Today, on this special episode sponsored by VFIS, we look at all things recruitment and retention with guest Sarah Lee from the National Volunteer Fire Council. Let's go.
Welcome to Behind the Sirens, a VFIS of North Carolina series. This is where we sit down and talk straight about leadership, risk, and the stuff that actually affects the fire and emergency service world. Whether you're brand new or you've been doing this a long time, it's about giving you and your crew the insight to make better calls, stay protected, and go home with confidence.
I'm Travis. Today on All Clear, we've got a very special guest with us. We have Miss Sarah, who is with the National Volunteer Fire Council. Miss Sarah Lee, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Hey, it's an honor and a privilege. And I got connected with you through our friends at VFIS of North Carolina. And, we always talk about how to improve individual firefighters. And sometimes we got to talk about improving the fire service. So why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and how you're involved with the NVFC, and we'll kind of go from there.
Okay, well, I am Sarah Lee. I'm the CEO of the National Volunteer Fire Council. I had a couple roles before that, but I've been there about 20 years now. But I actually grew up in a fire service family. My dad was a firefighter in Arlington County, Virginia. My mom eventually worked for the fire department. My brother works for the fire department. My nephew works for the fire department. I married a volunteer. So it just kind of runs in the family.
No, that's absolutely good. So you've got kind of deep roots and deep connections to what you're talking about, and that really helps you understand the unique situations that this industry brings with it. But, let's start out real simple. When we talk about recruitment and retention in the fire service, this is kind of going to be our theme today. What are we actually talking about? Are recruitment and retention the same problem, or are they actually different battles that we're trying to fight?
So I see that they're so intermeshed with each other that they're not technically separate, right? If you are only focused on retention, then eventually you're going to run out of people because we're all aging and getting older, right? So it's really important to also focus on recruitment and bringing people in and thinking about what your department needs in terms of quantity of people, types of people. Of course, you need those older, more seasoned members on your department that can maybe hold those leadership roles, that have the historical knowledge and that experience in the department. You need the mid-level people that are turning into learning those leadership roles, that are taking on some of those responsibilities. And of course, you need your younger members too, that are going to be supporting the team and learning how they can contribute even more to the department as they gain more skills. So I really think they're intermeshed.
Yeah, no doubt. And a lot of times I think we try to look at it from a different lens for each one, but sometimes, they are more common than we think. But now from your perspective, why are we really losing people right now? What's actually taking people away from this industry, and what's even keeping them from walking through the door of the station? What are the biggest things we're facing right now?
That's such a great question. And I have kind of 4 things on my list that I think about when I think about why we're losing people or why people are not joining. And the first one is really that time is a concern, is a currency, right? So you can always make more money. You can get a part-time job. You can Uber. You can bring in more money, but you can't bring in more time. You have a limited amount. And so I think everybody is thinking really carefully about where they're spending their time. Is it bringing value to their life? Is it bringing value to their family? And that's important to them. I think along that vein, people are busier than ever. We've got households where 2 people need to work to pay the bills and meet the mortgage or the rent. I think even in a solo house where you have one person, they might be working multiple jobs to pay the bills and make ends meet. So we just have people that are busier now than ever. So time becomes even more constricted in terms of what we have. Unlike the past, when you might go into the office, you might go do your shift work, you go home, you spend time with your family, you weren't really thinking about work until the next day. we have cell phones now. They're in our pocket 24/7, dinging with emails and texts. So it's the mental load that today's work environment takes too, because you don't only need time to volunteer, you also need that mental capacity and that mental space to put towards it. So I think there's multiple things there kind of affecting our time that are making it more challenging to volunteer. Number two, I think that the fire service is competing with itself. I think we have a lot of volunteers that are going on to career positions. I have long said that the volunteer fire service is the apprenticeship program for the career fire service. But are we thinking about how we're doing that? Is there a more structured way to accomplish that? Is there a way to, say, reward people that have volunteered for 2 or 3 years? Maybe that volunteer department got a great return out of that investment with them in 2 to 3 years, and they go on to become career and maybe to get a leg up in the hiring process. We're also not always that welcoming to people when they're coming in sometimes. And I think that's so important. When you bring a new person in, if they didn't grow up in the fire service, it can be a pretty intimidating space. So if you're not being welcoming, sometimes you're driving those people out by not making them feel like they belong, maybe not giving them space to ask those questions or learn the 9 million acronyms that are in the fire service that can trip people up.
Definitely.
I think sometimes we're also our own worst enemy in many ways. Every department at some point is going to have that person that maybe is not carrying their weight. Maybe they're bad-mouthing other people. Maybe they're bad-mouthing the department. Maybe they're not making their shifts. And if you don't nip that in the bud, that toxicity will go throughout the department. It might drive away the good people. So who do you have left? The person that maybe you didn't want to keep, and you're driving out the good people. So it's making sure that you're addressing those things as they come up, and making sure that you have a good, positive environment in the department as well. And then lastly, it's adapting to those generational needs. I think the needs of somebody in their 50s or 60s is going to be a little different than somebody in their 20s or 30s. And it doesn't mean that the needs of the older generation are bad or wrong, or the younger generation is bad or wrong. They're just different. And this is a great opportunity to understand what people are looking for and how the department can meet those needs when they're bringing them in. Because if you're not meeting those needs for your volunteers, for your staff, they're not going to stick around.
So listening to those 4 points, it seems like culture it plays a big role. And if anybody has been around a fire department, a firehouse, a station for more than about a day, you know that the culture is unlike anything else in any other industry. And people from the outside looking in could be very intimidated by what they're seeing. But at the same time, if you have been in the swimming pool for a while, you'll know that there are different generations of people, like you talked about, and there are different performance levels of people. I was listening to another podcast actually before I came to set up today, and it was interesting. He was mentioning that in a lot of organizations, he had what he called the 10-80-10 rule. You have the top 10% are really your hard go-getter performers. The other 80% are trying to kind of figure out where they're going. Are they going to rise to the top, or are they going to be the ones that are more complacent? And then you've got that 10% at the bottom who are not really interested in the job and on their way out, which is sad. But, I think that you really hit it on the head when you were talking about the culture and the changes we see right now in the world around us, how that's reflected in this industry. And it's very important that we kind of keep our fingers on the pulse of what's going on.
Yeah. And I think culture is intentional. It's not accidental, right? So if you are not intentionally working to make a positive culture where people can learn, they can grow, you understand what they're looking for out of that relationship with the department, the fire service, that's something that everybody can improve and affect and make better in some ways, even if it's small incremental steps.
Sure. And one of the things that we believe in here on the All Clear podcast is actionable steps. It's one thing you can talk about theory all day long about how to do something. But if you don't have the steps or at least have a plan how to move forward, sometimes it's a harder thing to accomplish. Protect your department with a partner who understands the job. Matt Nolan and the team at VFIS of North Carolina provide specialized insurance, risk management, and training built for fire, EMS, and rescue agencies. From reducing injuries to strengthening your operations, they're here to support your mission and your team. Learn more at VFISNC.com. If I'm a chief officer, company officers listening to this today, what are a couple things I can do this week, this afternoon, to start improving recruitment in my department?
Okay, so I think there's quite a few things that you can do. Certainly making sure that your members are having that positive experience, because word of mouth is going to be one of your best selling points. If your members are having a positive experience, if they feel heard, if they feel listened to, if they feel valued in the department, they're going to go talk to their neighbors and the person at the grocery store and their coworkers or their fellow students about that positive experience that they're having. Another thing you can do for recruitment is to provide a sampling experience. I think we see a lot of people, they watch Chicago Fire. They watch these other shows, and that's what they think they need to be in the fire service. And that's not true at all, because there's really a place for just about anybody in the fire service, whether it's operational or non-operational. But if you can bring them in, if you do an open house, if you do a ride along, if you give them a sampling experience of some sort, let them try on bunker gear, let them handle the hose, let them see what life is like at the station. And they can start to see themselves in that role. So they have now gone from, I could never do that, I'm not super buff, and I don't look like a model, to, oh, maybe this is for me. These people do look like me, and these people are friendly. And yeah, maybe I could do this. So you're piquing that interest with them. And then balancing that structure with some flexibility for them too. So articulating how they can make a difference in the community and why this work is important, I think, is really helpful in bringing people in, showing them a path they can follow. They're not just going to come and be a new recruit forever, right? Maybe they want to move into a leadership position. What is that path? What can you offer them to get from point A to point B? And then I think one of the biggest things we're seeing now is some flexibility, whether it's in training, whether they can do some online, some in person, offering on different days. If they have some flexibility in the shifts they sign up for or the days that they're on call, that helps them get that work-life volunteer balance. They can schedule maybe what they're doing for the department around their kids' soccer games or other important life events that would otherwise draw them away.
Absolutely. And, that flexibility can't be stated enough, especially when you're talking about volunteering. And, the pay is not great in the fire service across the board for when you talk about paid departments. Much less, you have to realize there's more to this industry than just a paycheck. And I think you're really putting out some good points that are very actionable that, we could very easily, hey, let's get more people in. Let's let them see that it's not all about running into burning buildings. There's a medical component. There's a rescue component to it. There's all these different things that it's kind of like a choose your own adventure book. If you're of a certain age, you remember those growing up. And you just got to get in the door. And once you're in there, you can kind of play in your own path. But once we have people in our organization, retention is something where I think a lot of departments are really hurting. What keeps the good people around, and what are a lot of organizations getting wrong about retaining people?
Well, I think one of the most important things you can do is, again, know who your people are. Have that human touch. Know, why did they join? What are they hoping to get out of this? What motivates them? And then how can your department provide that, right? You want to make sure that they are getting something out of it too. Even if what they want to get out of it is knowing that they are helping their community, reiterating that to them, showing them case scenarios where they have made a difference in the community can be really helpful. I would say also know them as humans outside of the station. Know their families, know who their kids are, what pets they have. Are they suddenly missing shifts? Did they miss a call? Are they not quite acting the same as you're used to? Like, that is a great time to check in with them and see what is happening. Don't just write them off and say, well, clearly they don't care. Maybe they have something going on in their life. Maybe they have a sick parent, a sick child, something like that. And that's a great time to show that the department can really be a great support to them and that the department really does care about them as people, not just as staffing. And I think the thing that departments often miss the boat on is how important that family support is. If the firefighter, first responder doesn't have the support of their spouse, of their kids, of their parents, that is going to draw them away from the station and make it a point of contention in their family rather than something to be valued and celebrated. So whenever you can, bring in the family. When I do interviews for prospective volunteers at my station, I'll invite the parents if it's a teenager. I'll invite a spouse or partner if it's somebody older to come in so they know what to expect. They know what the training schedule is going to look like, what the shift schedule looks like, how we're taking care of the health and physical side of the job. You know, we're doing physicals every year, that sort of thing. So making sure that the family is involved. If you do something with the department, you know, a picnic, something like that, invite the family members. Go to a baseball game, invite the family members. You got to bring them in and let them know what it's like and meet other people. And it really does become that family support system then.
You know, that's one of the things. I didn't come from a fire background personally. And if you told me when I was in high school that I'd be working for the fire department, I would have shook my head and said, you're crazy. Ain't no way. But I'm in a unique place now because my chief actually went to high school with me. Now, in school, we weren't necessarily in the same social circles, but, you know, 20 years later, we have a connection. You know, we work for a common goal. And one of the things that I truly appreciate about Chief Williams is the fact that he knows every member of our organization. He knows you by name. He knows what you got going on. He knows if you've maybe had illness in the family or if you've lost a parent or, you know, what are your kids' names? What's going on? So that truly brings that family feel to it. And when you talk about the fire service, we mentioned it earlier, your family at home becomes part of your family at work because you can't live in two different worlds when it comes to this industry, and you really have to kind of bridge it. And when a department has that figured out, you've got some secret sauce right there that I think will go a long way in helping make people want to stay around because it's such a time-consuming job at times. You have to understand that you're safe and the people that you love are safe too. And just know that connection's there.
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head. It really is like the secret sauce.
Absolutely. So for departments that need help, if you've got that combo department, volunteer department that really needs help, what can the NVFC actually offer that people might not know about? And what's the first stop to get the process started?
Yeah, well, we have our Make Me a Firefighter program, which has its own website, is makemeafirefighter.org. And anybody can go there. You register your department. You can list your volunteer opportunities that you have. We have tools on that website. We have articles you can read. We have research that we have done on recruitment and retention and what works and why people are leaving and all of that. And we even have a materials generator. So if you're not a graphic designer, but you want a handout for your open house or you're doing something in a local school, you can just go there, put your logo on some materials, download it, print it, and have that readily available. And we do all the marketing behind it. So we actually do nationwide marketing behind, hey, you can become a firefighter, check out this website, look at these volunteer opportunities. So we're also helping with that financial burden that can come along with advertising that you need help. So yeah, makemeafirefighter.org.
Okay. Now it's time for the question I warned you about that I wasn't going to answer for you. So, gonna ask you a tough. Well, not really. It's not that tough. But if you had, hopefully, you had the attention of a lot of firefighters today. But if you had the attention of every chief, every firefighter, every company officer across the country for exactly 30 seconds, what would you tell them to stop doing or to start doing? And why does it matter? And it can be on any
I,
topic.
I would definitely say start paying attention to the culture of your organization. Again, are people having what they need met out of the department? Are you providing that? How can you care for them as humans, as people? When it comes to retention or recruitment, the number one thing you can do beyond anything else, signboards, online listings, is making the ask. So whether it's your neighbor, it's your colleague, it's somebody at the grocery store, you can just say to them, hey, I think you might enjoy volunteering here, or hey, I see something in you that would be a great fit for what we do. Would you come by the station and check this out with me? It's that one-on-one individual ask that is the absolute best recruitment tool to get people in the door.
Okay. So I like it. I like it. Just be open and never miss an opportunity to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
Excellent. So if people want to learn more about you, about the NVFC, the things they do, I know you mentioned the Make Me a Firefighter program. What other resources do you have available, and how can folks find out more about you guys?
Okay, so we have our website, which is nvfc.org, and we have a lot of different tools and guides and resources on that website. We actually have a guide called What to Expect, a guide for new firefighter families. This is an excellent tool. I actually hand it out to every new recruit that comes through my station to share with their family. We have a psychologically healthy fire department toolkit. So if you want to start thinking about that culture in your station and actions you can take to make it more positive and welcoming and that environment where people want to stay, that's all there. We have a bunch of other stuff, research, volunteer calculators to calculate the savings of your department to your community. It's all at nvfc.org. And then we also offer a bunch of training, whether you're looking for leadership training, recruitment, retention training, hazmat, electric vehicles. A lot of it is free. We get grants so that we can provide this free to departments, and you can find out all about that at nvfc.org.
Absolutely. That's good to know. We'll have links in our show notes to all that good information. And like we talked about, this is kind of like choose your own adventure. Once you get into the fire service, you can pick whatever direction, whether it be leadership, whether it be rescue, fire, structural, wildland. You pick it, you can do it. And it's good to know that there are resources there that we can learn from. But, one of the things that we always talk about here on the All Clear podcast is being the best firefighter you can. Once you get in the door, it's partially on you to make it the best experience you can. Not everybody can do it for you. And we always encourage people to learn more, look for ways to improve yourself, whether it be your physical health, your mental health, your financial health, your career. It's all linked together. And, it's really good to know organizations like the NVFC are around to help to support things like that. So, Sarah, we always say here on our podcast, light your fire within, and we encourage all the departments, check your culture and see what you can do to ignite your department.
Oh!